And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today, I'm talking with Megan Camille. And Megan, first of all, thank you for spending some time with me as my guest today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, you are welcome. It's going to be a really fun conversation. So, Megan, for those of you who don't know her, she is she's built a couple six-figure and seven-figure businesses, and from scratch, relying not on what the gurus told her, really, as much as her gut instincts, her inner guidance, her intuition. That's what we're going to talk about today. Is really how to use your gut to grow your business, and it's going to be a really really fun conversation. So, as we dive into the deep end here, Megan, tell me, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Oh gosh, the origin story is it comes from two different directions. One I think is going to be relatable to some women or parents,
Mm.
and then the other aspect just probably for not very many people. But in my late teens, I was sex trafficked. And so really what that has to do with my business now is I had a really hard start to early adulthood,
Yeah.
very, very challenging hard start. And it actually meant that I was unemployable after 4 years of being there and finally escaping and being able to leave and come back into society. Unfortunately, the perpetrators kind of get off flying under the radar, and those who had been exploited typically leave with very heavy consequences. And so
Yeah.
I left with really heavy consequences, which meant I was virtually unemployable.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, long story short, I did many years of healing there and later married my previous husband, who is the father of my two older children. And that was a very short lived marriage. And so I quickly found myself as a single mom to an infant and a toddler. Plus, I was unemployable from the late teens. Now I was in my early to mid 20s and was still reaping the consequences of having been sex trafficked. So now I was a single mom and I had a record, so I couldn't be employed in anything that was really very a good job.
Right.
And so I had a hard choice, like an entry level job that I would work 40 or 50 hours a week just to pay for childcare and maybe a halfway decent house over our head, or live off of the state, or learn to generate my own income.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the third is the direction I went. I
Yeah.
started learning how to run businesses, and I had no college education to support me in that, but I did have a really strong intuition. And that intuition is what has guided me in building and leading 10 businesses or 4 businesses in the last 10 years is my intuition.
Wow. That is a crazy story. Um, all right, four businesses in the last 10 years. That in and itself is an achievement regardless, right?
Yeah.
Let's dive into this whole gut instinct intuition. Explain a little bit more about what you mean, because too many times that can sound so woo woo, and people don't get it.
Mhm.
Unpack what do you mean by that? Intuition.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that what we're born with is like this inner knowing, this intuition, is what is considered woo woo instead of like what we are conditioned to use, right? Our logic and our thinking mind, and really our logic and our mind was just meant to be a tool, just as our body
Yeah.
is meant to be a tool. And really our intuition has the all seeing, all knowing, past, present, future. And this is something that many of us have learned out of using, but it's never gone. It would be like if you only used your right hand and never used your left hand, you still have the left hand, it just isn't as strong.
Right.
And so that's our intuition. It's always already there, it's always been there, it's not going anywhere. And it is that instantaneous knowing. It is so quick that most people zoom right past it and go up into the head and go, let me make this decision or let me think about this with the mind,
Yes.
even though they've already felt the direction and the answer to whatever whatever it is they were contemplating.
Yeah. So much. Yeah. I tell people all the time, and everybody, this is so self-evident. We all make decisions emotionally first, then we find the logic to justify what we really want to do. But that emotional thing is so fast sometimes that it's like, well, of course I want to buy a new Porsche. And because they are so blah, 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 right.
Yeah.
But it's that intuition that we're born with. We learn the other things. And so many times, especially guys, we ignore it. I've been married for 30, soon to be 34 years. I've learned, if I've only learned one thing in that 34 years, is to trust my wife's intuition. When she has this weird gut feeling about a person or a thing or a whatever, even if everything in me says, no, we need to do this. And she's like, I'm just not feeling, I don't, I put on the brakes and I go, okay, let's talk. And so many times, like almost 100 times, she's right.
Yeah, yeah. My husband is really, my now husband is just so supportive of this intuition. And it's really benefited him as he has been able to retire at 44 years old, thanks to
Yeah.
my ability to follow intuition so quickly and easily that success has come at a rapid rate. I don't want to say without any
Right.
difficulty, but definitely a rapid rate where he's going, this doesn't seem like a good idea. If I'm looking at a spreadsheet or I'm accessing my thoughts about this doesn't look very logical or responsible. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's okay. We're going with what I know, not what I know in my mind, but what I know in my energetic sphere. And that has paid dividends to his life and his experience as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So for those of us who aren't so in tune with our inner being or spirit, how do we start moving towards that to start, dare I say, trusting it? Is that the right phrase?
Yeah, trust is perfect because that is what is required. It is about moving forward without the proof. I always say that clarity is for the employee, and courage is for the entrepreneur.
I
So if
love that.
you're really looking at being an entrepreneur and you want to live in the place that is beyond good and safe, which is prosperous and free
Yeah.
and adventurous, you will get to lean on courage and trusting that intuition versus clarity and proof. They're
Hmm.
different paths and they create different results.
Right.
And so, the way that we start working that muscle is most people aren't lacking their intuition. They actually have the intuitive hit. They actually have the gut knowing. They have the nudge. It is the action aligning with that knowing that is missing because they go, oh my God, what will people think of me? What if it doesn't work? I'll be so humiliated. And they make it about them and so they go the safe route. And so they don't ever actually get to, the promised land, those amazing results that I have been able to experience. And they go, oh, how come I can't have that? And the difference is I bet on the intuition and not on what sounds like it would make more sense. So it's not about hearing your intuition more. It's actually about following your intuition more. And then each time you follow that intuitive nudge, it gets louder next time and stronger. And now, after a few times of following that nudge, you've got proof. You're like, oh, this is actually really working out for me. And there is less questioning it as you go forward. But the first step is courage,
Yeah.
not clarity.
Yeah. No, that's really, really good. Because the other thing that hit me is following your intuition doesn't play well in the boardroom so many times, right? And it's not logical. You don't have the proof in the backup in the many times, but it's that, you know what? It takes me back to Steve Jobs and Apple when he came back to Apple years and years and years ago, and he created that world famous ad campaign, or he hired somebody to create it for the Super Bowl, and he showed it to the board of directors and everybody at Apple, and everybody said, "Nope, that's a dumb thing. We're not doing that." And Steve Jobs knew in his gut, he's like, "On all of you, we're running it." And it
Yeah.
was iconic. It made Apple, all of that. But he was a strong courage. He had
Mhm.
the courage to follow his gut to go, no, this is the way we're doing it. And I think business owners many times don't do that. They don't lead with courage for whatever reason. How do you explain?
Oftentimes they're pulling from like a corporate, kind of like the boardroom, or
Yeah.
again what we've been conditioned through school and education and mainstream jobs, right? Which is you follow these directions. And so something else that Steve Jobs had was he had courage to do it differently, but he also had a capacity to be disliked. He had
Mm,
a capacity to hold rejection, which meant he also had a capacity to hold acceptance and people liking him,
yes.
right? And most people, when they're not following their intuition, they're actually avoiding those things of being disliked, of being judged, of being rejected. And so when we can start holding that, oh, I can be with someone thinking this is a silly idea and not make it about me. Oh, I can be with the disapproval of many people. And when we can be with that, let's say, shadow, heavier, less exciting part of business, we can also be with the success. We can also be with the prosperity and the money and the, all that comes with the opposite of what most people are moving away from. So we
Hmm.
want to be moving towards something, not away from something. And intuition is always leading us toward that thing.
Hmm. So how do when you work with business owners, all right, before we get there, what because you work with business owners and lots of other people, right, to help them kind of find that breakthrough that's holding them
Mhm.
back so they can find more success. And what are the struggles that they're battling with? What are the demons, right? Is it mostly mental? Do you find that they are discounting their emotions, or they're what's going on in their minds that's holding them back?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's holding them back is that most entrepreneurs, especially once they're already at six figures, multiple six figures, is they think that what's holding them back is strategy. And while strategy is very important, it's plug and play. You can learn just about any strategy online and, plug it and play it, kind of like an IKEA. You can just read the directions and build it. And what most entrepreneurs at that point are missing is they're wanting to move into seven or multiple seven or beyond, is that it isn't strategy, it's energetic. It is, I'm not willing to look at my own stuff. This isn't a me problem, it's an out there problem, right?
Yeah.
So inner leadership is typically a little bit of a gap. As well as looking to the outside. So this is where I tell business owners market research is bullshit, and they definitely go to market research. How can I make this message better? How can I price this so that people will buy it? And once we start coming inside, knowing that your desire is already proof of demand, we don't have to test it. We don't have to see if someone out there wants it, because we know they want it because I have a desire to offer it. And
Yeah.
when we're looking at the energetics of the world, it's duality, it's polarity where we live. We see that one cannot exist without the other. So your desire to give that product or to give that service is already in demand out there. And then again, pricing. People will go, pricing, this is a strategic thing. And actually, pricing does not come down to your value. We're all invaluable. Pricing comes down to your level of receivership. What are you able to receive? And that takes us back to energy. If you want to
Yeah.
be able to receive more money, success, visibility, accolades, whatever it is, you get to open up to more receivership, not try to figure out who out there will give that to me.
Right. Yeah. That's so good because the issues, yeah, is mostly it's an inside issue. Success is an
Mhm.
inside job so much of the time, and we limit ourselves here. And the receiving, I love how you put that because I don't think I've heard anybody put it quite that way. But in any industry, if somebody's trying to get to that next level, I always say just stop. Is anybody in your industry like killing it, doing 10 times, 200, 400 times what you're doing? And they're like, well, yeah, there are these other two companies. I'm like, there you go. It's already doable. The issue's
Yeah.
not you and your product. The issue's you. How do
Mhm.
you model what they're doing or whatever, right? Because it's there. The, once you release yourself, now there's a book years ago, God, 40 years ago. It was called Release Your Brakes.
Mm.
And it was all about, you think about a car driving with brakes on. He's like, think about how much faster, if you just release the brakes, how much acceleration are you going to get? That's really what you're talking about, right? So let's unpack this a little bit for business owners who might see themselves in what we're talking about. How do you help them? What does it look like to work with you? I mean, just high level stuff, but what is it? A 1 week session? Is it a year long? Is it what is it? What's the pathway?
Yeah, so typically I attract those who are a little more A type, a little more structured, a little more in the logic, and they're looking for that polar opposite, that freedom to be more fluid and to be more intuitive and to have more freedom. So I really work with those who are looking to work only 3 hours a day and make 500K a year in 3 hours a day or more. Many of my private clients are moving into the multiple seven figures, and they're looking to have someone come in and support them in a restructure in an intuitive way beyond just work a little harder, raise your prices, and do it the way that I did it.
Yeah.
Right. You're looking for some tailorized support in their natural rhythm and a business that will work for them instead of them working for their business. And so I always start as their own personal intuitive. I'm like the secret back pocket weapon. And initially it is me tapping in and tuning in and delivering, intuitive messages and creating a very simple blueprint to take them from where they are to time freedom and increasing their. All of my clients work their intuitive muscle so that they are sovereign and that they are not dependent on me or anyone else. And so we're really doing two things. We're finishing up or restructuring, tightening up a strategy that aligns with them, and we're working their own intuitive muscle so that they are free to go and do this at the end of our time together.
Yeah, which is so good. So you're dare I say, you're giving them some fish up front, but you're teaching them to fish so that once they understand how to trust their gut in one area, because they're probably coming to you for business, right? But what you're teaching them allows them to take that and trust their gut in relationships or anything else in life. Fair?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. That is so cool. How long does it take? I mean, that's a loaded question because I'm sure some people come to you just like it. But can somebody find transformation in 3 months, or is it 9 months, or is it wow, that was amazing? I never. And does that depend on how in tune they've tried to become already? Because I'm sure some people have tried to tap into their gut or feel their gut, and they're like, yeah, no, 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 because we're so conditioned to do it a
Yeah.
different way. How do you?
Transformation is always taking place, right? We're always shifting and changing and transforming. I really see those who are already that come into my world. If they're already established with a business idea and a little bit of an audience and that sort of thing, they move into the 20 to 30,000, and around the 4 month mark is the most common that I see where transformation happens. It's like that 3 to 4 month time span.
Yep.
If they're already making multiple six figures, one of my favorite examples is a client who went from 600,000 to over 1 million in 10 months. So again, with just some momentum and then shifting things to match your own natural rhythm, transformation is always already here.
Yeah.
Now, someone who might be starting from scratch, I support those people as well. And that's where we're going. We're creating a business plan that is 500K in 3 hours a day, according to their natural rhythm. That takes a little longer because when you start with zero and you've never ran a business, right, it takes a little longer. And we want sustainability. We don't want just one fast, awesome month. We really want longevity, right? There's a lot of people who come on the scene and they make six figures in a year and they're not sure how they did it and they're not able to do it again. And so when you're starting from scratch, I say a minimum of 6 to 9 months is where you're going to start seeing some sustainable income coming in.
Yeah.
I prefer to work with people 9 or 12 months so that you can go through a couple of rounds of a rinse and repeat of a simple strategy that aligns with you.
Yeah. And that's so good because and I'm glad you answered that way because I don't want people to hear that this is a quick fix, overnight purple pill type thing. This is I don't want to say it's changing how you think and operate. It at one level it is, but it's really recalibrating because all those signals are there. It's just that
Mhm.
I'm kind of turning the dial a little bit to kind of like a radio dial. You're probably not old enough. Back when I was, you had a radio dial and you would turn it right to get a new station. And that's kind of what you're doing is like we need to tune you into your gut and have your antennas up to here. Oh no, it's not static anymore. It's actually clear and it's more clear than this over here. And we're going to go in this direction. And wow, that once you understand that process, how to do it, you need to build those muscles
Mhm.
so that the next time your muscle memory tunes in and you're like, I'm going to choose to go this way first. And
Yeah.
now logic has to make its case for me to go that right. Is that fair?
That's exactly right. And
Okay.
you're so on point with it's not about a get rich quick. It's about having a passion, a mission, and learning to monetize it in a way that it will work for you and doesn't enslave you the way that maybe a job would, right? And
Yeah.
so now can it happen quickly? For my experience, this is not everyone's
Right.
experience. My experience, all four businesses, I was at six figures in the first 4 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So with your level of receivership, are you able to receive, which is where I support so many of my clients? Of course, those take place. And even if it took you 12 months or 18 months to learn these skills that will allow you to generate money and be sovereign for the rest of your life, so
Yeah,
worth it.
that's
So worth
right.
it.
That's right. Yeah. And that is so good because once you land on this, it is something that you have for the rest of your life, not just in business, but in relationships. And once you get it, you could probably share it with other people, right? Because we're all surrounded by people who are just like us. So if you're a type A person, you're surrounded by other type A people who are only thinking one way. And when you change, they're going to notice that change. And you can say, well, here, this is what I did. And I can share with you some of the things, but you probably need to go work with Megan because she's like amazing, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There you go.
So, okay, we could probably talk for a long, long time because I've got 3 or 4 other ideas and thoughts in here, but it's probably more valuable to say, let's pause and say, how do people get a hold of you? Because this is a I don't want to say different because but you've taken a different approach to helping people really tap into their gut, what we're born with. That
Mhm.
intuition is not a girl thing; it's a
Mhm.
human thing. How do
Yes.
we tap into that to find that freedom, that growth, that experience, that receivership, as you put? I love that in any area of your life. If you're listening and you're sitting out there going, yeah, this is fascinating. Where would they go, Megan, to find out more about you and connecting with you?
Well, you can find me at megancamille.com. I'm also on Instagram at the Megan Camille, and you can find me on Facebook with my name as well, Megan Camille. Yeah.
And for those of you who are listening, you know how I love marketing and simplicity. And do you see how she's branding herself around herself and her name and how simple it is because it's always Megan Camille and the Megan Camille and Megan Camille. So it's going to be really difficult to miss and not reach out to Megan Camille because you know that if you just Google Megan Camille, you're probably going to find Megan Camille. So well done on your branding, Megan Camille. Anyway,
Thank you.
sorry, I had to go there for a marketing purpose because it's so good just to have clarity and simplicity. And so many business owners don't even have that. But that allows you to receive so many people who are looking for what you have to offer. So Megan, thank you for being here today. Thank
Mhm.
you for persevering through a very challenging teen years and early 20s and doing something that a lot of people just are amazed at, and then having the courage to show up and share with what you've learned with other people to help them grow as well. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Listen again for another great episode of Experts Speak.